Welcome. In this segment, we're going to look at incremental analysis and focus on how we help managers make decisions by using accounting information. Now, managers make important decisions all day in just the daily duties that they have. They'll be deciding on which product lines to offer, whether they should make a part or buy it from an external supplier, what prices to charge, whether to discontinue a segment. When we do this, we are going to focus on the incremental or differential analysis approach in most of the decisions that we're going to look at. And this is just the process where managers identify what will change under various alternatives. And rather than looking at the total cost approach, we're going to look at this incremental cost approach. To do this, you'll have to identify what is relevant to the decision. Also, know that every decision has at least two alternatives. You can choose to produce a product line or not produce it. You can choose to accept a special order from a customer or reject it. So you always have two choices. Even if you decide not to make the decision, you're still making a choice. To use incremental analysis, you'll eliminate any costs or revenues that don't differ in total among the alternatives, and then you'll base your decision on what remains. Just by way of review, when you make a decision, variable cost will likely change. That's just the nature of these costs. Sometimes you will be given information that has you know that variable costs are not going to change. But unless that happens, you can assume variable cost will change when you make a decision. Fixed cost, on the other hand, may or may not change. It depends on if there's idle capacity. So it is important that you understand this idea of idle capacity. Capacity refers to the ability to produce. So capacity means you have floor space, management force, machinery. You have everything you need to produce some units. Idle capacity means that it is not being used. So oftentimes when you have idle capacity, fixed cost will change very little if you decide to produce another product line or accept an offer from a customer or something like that. We are going to focus on this in the short run. All right, there are some cost definitions and concepts that you'll want to apply as you go through your problems. First, know what incremental means. Incremental revenues and cost just simply refers to the total difference in those among two alternatives. Relevant costs are future costs that differ among the alternatives. So again, there's two parts. It's got to be a future cost and it has to differ among the alternatives. So when you decided to come to college, tuition and books were relevant. If you don't go to college, you will not have these costs. If you do, you will. So they're future costs that differ among the two choices that you have. Avoidable costs, these can be eliminated by choosing an alternative. So this is really just another way of saying relevant. So once again, when you decided to come to college, or if now you decide not to continue your education, you can avoid tuition if you don't attend college. Sunk cost. Now this is a cost that has already been incurred. It can't be changed, therefore not relevant. So let's continue our attending college example and look at the decision to Q-drop a class. I often have students that come in and they're trying to decide if they should drop my class or some other class. And if we decide, well, maybe it is best to go ahead and drop the class, the student will begin to say, well, I've paid tuition and fees on that class, or my parents have. I've bought the textbook, and I've spent a lot of time. These are all sunk costs. They're not relevant to the decision. Always a good thing to keep in your back pocket if you ever have to Q-drop a class and your parents are paying for your school. Mom says, but we paid the tuition and fees. You can say, well, it's a sunk cost, Mom. It's not relevant. Opportunity costs. These are benefits foregone by choosing the best alternative. So you'll choose the best alternative, the one that maximizes income, and you'll give up the next best alternative. So you give up the profit of that alternative. So for most of you, I realize there's a few exceptions, but most of you have given up full-time income so you could come to Texas A&M. All right, so those are the definitions that you'll want to apply as you read through a problem. Now, why would we use this incremental analysis approach? One of the main reasons that managers use this approach is that it saves time. Rather than trying to identify all the costs, you just identify what difference will it make if we accept this order. And it does place the focus on what is relevant. All right, let's look at the concept of relevant costs. Tim's Tools normally sells 10,000 sets of its specialized tools to craftsmen for $20 per set. The costs associated with each set include variable costs of $10 per set, which includes $2 of selling costs. And fixed costs are currently $30,000. A distributor outside of Tim's Tools sales region has contacted the owner, Tim, and would like to buy 200 sets of tools for $15 each. So this is an unusual order because it is outside the sales region and at a lower price than they normally charge, since they normally charge $20. Tim's Tools has idle capacity, but will have to rent additional equipment for $2,000 to meet the additional demand. So this means they have the floor space, they have most of the equipment they need, they have the managers to manage this, but they'll just have to rent a piece of machinery. When Tim is considering whether or not to accept the special order, which of the following are relevant to making the decision? So we're not trying to make the decision here, we're just trying to identify, out of all these costs, what is relevant to the decision. So the choices are the $10 per set variable cost, the total fixed cost of $32,000, the additional $2,000 of fixed cost, or A and B or A and C. So let's go through A, B, and C. If you accept the order, you will incur materials, labor, variable overhead, and selling costs to produce and sell the extra units. Now the total fixed costs. The $30,000 of original fixed cost is not relevant to the decision. It's not going to change whether you accept the offer or not. So B is not relevant. The part of the fixed cost that is relevant to the decision is the $2,000 of equipment rental. So our answer is E. Now, would your answer differ if Tim's Tools had inventory remaining from a prior year that it needed to sell to make room for new inventory? So note, in this case, no additional equipment rental would be required because they're not going to have to manufacture the inventory. So this is going to change the answer to what costs are relevant. So let's think about what cost would be incurred to sell this inventory. So if the inventory was left over from last year, there's no additional fixed cost to consider. You're not going to have to rent equipment to produce it, and the $30,000 original fixed cost is not going to change. But the key here is that there would be no additional direct material, direct labor, or variable overhead cost. These units would have already been produced. So the only relevant cost is the selling cost. That is the $2 per set. All right, so as we move forward, we're going to look at 6 different decisions in the short run based on this incremental analysis. Just to give you a look at what we'll do next, we're going to look at special orders, add or drop a segment, further processing of joint products, make or buy decisions, utilization of a constrained resource, and managing constraints. So as you look forward in your notes, you don't need to write these 6 decisions down because those are the things you'll see there in your lecture notes. All right, so we will go over those decisions next time. So make sure and bring your lecture notes, and I'll see you then.